Why do I get crushed?
Oh, you're fine.
I don't believe you. All right, so describe different types of groups that we discussed yesterday in class. Detail how individuals conform to a group. Example, groupthink. There we go. And we'll talk about certain examples today through. All right, never mind.
Really? Yeah, I failed my test. Yes, I did. I cried a lot. I would.
No.
Because you guys were ignoring him.
Yep. Nope, zip it.
Wait. Are we supposed to describe all the different ones or just some of them?
Some of them will be fine. I'm sure some of you will mention other ones. Yeah, go ahead. Can you close the door, please? Wow. I know it's like a barn. You just let the door hang wide open. We'll let the heat all out, huh? Really? You're gonna say that?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like it.
All right. About to flip the desk.
You're the only one that said other one just
Really? Well, even though they beat the Packers in the NFC title game, I'll give it to you. Oh,
I just like Brady.
when was the last time you guys had a playoff win? At least we make it to the playoffs, make it to the NFC title game.
You've been a very. Oh, he's so.
Roy?
Moody, by the way, yeah. Be careful. He's moody today.
I'm a Cowboys fan.
Golf group. I brought it up last year. His bulb, Christmas bulbs.
I had a video of my dad. I don't know why I was filming the tree, but he is actually putting one on. He dropped it. He goes, oh. He doesn't say it. I'm not gonna say it, but it's so funny. You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, you're not updating my rule about that.
All right, here we go. Groupthink. What does it mean? What does it mean? Talked about it yesterday. Go ahead, Chris. Okay, all right. So you're conforming to that group, right? You're going to have the same decision making. You're going to have the same outcome of what is agreed of the group. Okay, I know I gave the example yesterday. You're sitting in class. I don't know if you're in math, whatever, and the questions brought up on the board. Kind of as a group, you conform to whatever the answer you guys all kind of think of. Even though you might have individualistic ideas that are different, you might have a different answer than that said group. You just conform to it. You're like, yeah, I'll agree to it. And if it comes out wrong, you're just like, shucks, gee, dang it. I should have said what I thought the answer really was. I would have been right. I would have proved the whole group wrong. And I would look like the smart one. But that fear of maybe us being wrong is why we just conform to the group. Make sense? Okay, cool. All right. So what about in group, out group? What does that mean? What's an in group? Go ahead, Leah. Yeah, good job. So we consider ourselves as we, right? Oh, this is our group, this is my group, whatever. Okay, we associate with these values, these beliefs, and it's something that you want to be a part of or that you already are a part of. Okay, you have a lot of traditional backgrounds to it. You have a lot of values that are considered with that group. What about an out group? What about an out group? Go ahead, Tegan. Yeah, good job. So this is a group that you maybe don't associate with. You don't have the same values or understanding or thoughts as that said group. And we might look at them as different and we don't associate, call them they, them. And whenever I watch Mean Girls, that's kind of what I think. Well, when they go through all those groups, okay, that's kind of what they're looking and associate them as the out group, as the plastics are being, as they're going around the cafeteria talking about the jocks and talking about the nerds and the geeks, whatever have you. It's like, oh, they consider them out groups. Make sense? Yeah. All right. And then finally, what other groups do we talk about? We said reference groups. What are they? Roy?
Group used for self-evaluation. Values.
All right, good. So it really says it in the name. We're referencing our group to theirs. We're comparing them. We're understanding what our values are, our beliefs, our tendencies, and comparing it to another group. All right, social network. What's that? What does that mean? Sarah? Yeah, good job. So personal relationships that we have scattered all across secondary groups, primary groups, and who we associate with. What groups we're a part of. Okay, like I mentioned, secondary and primary. It's dependent on everybody, obviously. But these are all the relationships. And then last one, aggregate. What was that? What was that? Go ahead, Brianna. Yeah, good job. So they're grouped together, but at the same time, they have no relationship whatsoever. They might not even know that person, might be a stranger. But at that certain time, I think I gave the example yesterday. You had Dunkin' or Starbucks, right, Tegan? Yeah, you might not associate with these people, but same time, you're considered part of that group where you're ordering Dunkin' or ordering Starbucks. And let's say a crime happens outside. It's like, oh, the people in there, the customers in Dunkin'. Well, yeah, I'm part of that customer in that group at that time, but I have no relationship with these people whatsoever. All right, good. Is there any questions on that? Are we all good with that? Okay, all right. So today I want to talk a little bit about the Milgram study and how we can reflect that off of some of these groups, statuses, and roles that we just discussed. And this is a very important experiment, one that's talked about a lot in the field of psychology and sociology. So groups and obedience. And Stanley Milgram, he performed a study back in the 1960s, really once some of these trials for these Nazi generals and military officials, once they're kind of concluding, coming towards the end, Stanley Milgram wanted to see how people actually fit into these roles in these groups and how they actually can perform acts of evil, like what the Nazis did through the Holocaust and to their own people, really, that didn't conform to their values or their beliefs, their ideas. And Milgram came up with an experiment that kind of resembled that. And you'll read about it in this article I have for you. We can maybe you guys can watch it tonight. I'm thinking we can watch the video tomorrow of it, and we can discuss it tomorrow. But they actually tried to replicate this study a couple times, several times throughout the world, and see how this global perspective kind of fits in with this group study and this group status and how people conform to certain ideals, and find themselves just finding, really stating when they're asked, oh, why did you perform these actions or these terrible acts? Well, I was just trying to fit in. It's just my status. I was told to do these things. Okay, these are some of the lines that I had to follow. And it shows itself being proven over and over and over again, really, since it's been first studied by Stanley Milgram. All right, so objectives. Like I said, I'll talk about this more tomorrow, but here's a reading. I'd like you guys to come up and maybe grab this reading here. Here you go. Come up and grab this reading. Science of Evil, it's called. Pretty interesting. I think you guys will enjoy it. Two. All right, someone too lazy to come up. All right, hopefully I have enough. I printed out 12. Watch your fingers. Watch your fingers. Huh? No, not gonna read it now. You're gonna read it tonight. I want to talk about the study today. And then tomorrow you guys can. What? Yeah, kinda. Kinda. All right, so warm up. Warm up, here we go. What would it take to make you do something that you normally would not? What do you think? A bribe? Money? What did you say? Oh, I thought you said something else. I thought you said crack. Drugs, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Oh, man. Sorry, I'm not targeting you. I'm not. But in certain cases, yeah, drugs could definitely push people to do things that they typically wouldn't. Oh, man, they shouldn't be doing drugs anyway in the first place. Well, you said money, bribery, right? Maybe status. Okay, maybe moving up the social hierarchy. I don't know. Blackmail. Yeah, that's a good one. What?
Somebody's trying to murder somebody in your family. You're gonna do whatever they want you to do.
That's true. That's true. You guys ever see the movie Breaking Bad?
I was thinking Batman v Superman. Remember it? Lex Luthor?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know. Well, there's two papers that just printed out like 10 minutes after the fact. So I was like, you know what? I'll just staple it on there. There it is. So sorry. Yeah. We're gonna discuss it tomorrow. Yeah, I have the questions here. I'll have you guys take a picture of it then. Huh? Go. So why do people do stupid things when joining a frat during pledge week? Why do they do that? Conformity? To have fun? To be a part of the activities that maybe go down in these frats later throughout the school year? Hopefully you guys don't join into that one. You guys want to join a frat, you can. It's not all like that. It's not all like the stories you hear on the news where there's murders happening and these ridiculous pledges.
Oh yeah, how do you so experienced?
Huh?
How do you so experienced?
I was never joined one. I never joined a frat. Mm-mm.
I highly doubt.
Really? Oh, really? Okay, there you go. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So again, status, right? Connections, relationships that you're building. And especially after college, some of these frats, you might find yourself applying for a job. Oh, you know what? See it on the resume. I was a part of this group too in college. There you go. There's a connection already made. There's a relationship that you can maybe build on and maybe help you out throughout the course of your job hunt. Who knows? But yeah, so conformity. And Milgram, again, like I said, I'll kind of go through the study here today, how he decided, let's just try to replicate this. Let's see how far people will go under certain circumstances when they're told to do and perform a certain action, even if it means harming someone, which in this case, they weren't actually harming someone, but in a way, they had some psychological issues for the people actually performing the test, which is pretty crazy. We'll talk about. All right, so reasons for the group project. Sociology study groups for people, not just individuals. Yep. Where you fit in a group can change how often they act or how you're with. So kind of how I described already with the plastics, right? Where you're at in that said group, depending on your status, depending on your role within that group, you might perform some of these things, some of these terrible actions, depending where you're located. Obviously, the people located more towards the bottom of the hierarchy, they're going to perform the actions that are said by the leader. They're going to conform to the group to try to fit in, to try to establish themselves even more as maybe a hierarchy status. All right, so we're the leader, the teacher, the submissive group member. Okay, so within this study, the Milgram study, there is an experimenter, the person running it. Okay, he is administering kind of the rules to the person performing the test. So he's actually delivering electrical shocks to a person, fake electrical shocks. They're not actually electrical shocks, but he thinks they are. The person that's receiving it is actually an actor, which we'll talk about. All right, and then finally, this experiment shows how people react when they are given a new social status and social role. So again, comparing it to Nazi Germany, how many of these individuals, these common civilians, these citizens, through fear, would just adhere to the demands and rules and actions of the authority figures. Again, a lot of it through Nazi Germany was fear. A lot of it was through really brainwashing, okay, propaganda that was created through many, many years. Let's face it, when we talk, if you guys ever take a history course, you'll mention about Hitler and what he did to try to establish himself as leader in Germany. He promised many, many things to these individuals in Germany as they're going through rough times at the end of World War I through this depression. And what did he give to them? A lot of prosperity, jobs, advancement. He built up their military, which a lot of people have pride in. So yeah, once you give people a little bit of something, they'll just follow, right? They will follow. And if you're constantly told a certain aspect of life, okay, how life is supposed to be through these hardships, through these hard times, and as they're becoming better, people are going to adhere to your demands and your rulings, your thoughts. And that's exactly what Milgram was trying to express. All right, so we will watch the documentary tomorrow and how they're trying to replicate Milgram's study, and I think it's interesting. Okay, this article, like I said, kind of follows suit with that. So that's why I want you to read it tonight. So take some notes off of it, especially how you're going to relate it to the Milgram study that we're just about to talk about. So I'm thinking maybe Tuesday for the web stat. I know I attached that, I signed that a long time ago now. Shaking your heads, I get it. But let's just move it back to next week, just because I want to talk about the Stanford prison experiment too, and how this fits into groups, statuses, and roles. All right, so here are some of the things that I'd like you to do for the article. You're just going to list and explain 2 examples from history and current events where they accused people, had defended themselves with, I was just doing my job. Okay, I was just doing my job. Then I'll have some other questions here on the other slide that I'd like you to know. And there's many things you can compare it to. Okay, many, many things. Especially with China today. There's a lot of different things in these communist and authoritative governments where these roles are expected of the people, where they need to follow suit just because of fear, just because of paranoia, right? And some people might disappear if they don't follow suit with the hierarchy. Even today, I know just recently after the Afghanistan withdrawal, there's a military official that was challenging and actually expressing how maybe this job could have been done a little bit differently. And he actually was placed in jail for some sort of time. It's like, wait a minute, how can these people actually follow suit with this role? Well, they're told you're going to lose your position, you're going to lose your job. Okay, and that could be on the line if you don't follow suit. So yeah, there's many different things you can resemble with this Milgram study. And here are the questions I'd like you to write down or just take a picture of. So when you're reading the article tonight, even tomorrow when we're going through the documentary, you can relate this to these questions. Good? You guys have it here? All right, perfect. Yeah, well, I think there's only 2 questions on this one here. Yeah. Just 8 questions. Just 8, but they're pretty long. Yeah, sorry. My bad. All right, so Milgram's obedience experiment. This is what we're diving into. And it's pretty funny, actually. Milgram and Zimbardo, the two psychologists we're going to be talking about through the next couple of days, well, today, tomorrow, and on Monday, they actually were high school buddies. They went to high school together, and they performed the 2 most famous experiments that maybe crossed ethical guidelines. Like, what were they talking about in high school? You know, Chris? Like, what were they doing? Pretty crazy. So he was at Yale and he performed this study actually in the basement of Yale. It's like, oh, how can the school actually go for this too, right? How can they just allow this type of experiment to occur? And like I said, there are actors in this experiment, but the people that were actually performing it, that were involved in it to see how far they actually would go, they might have had some psychological issues following suit after this experiment. And that's why maybe it crossed some ethical guidelines, right? And some ethical backgrounds. So again, Milgram trying to see obedience to authority. First, personal conscience. So even though these people know it's wrong, even know that some of the things that the people are stating, like these authoritative figures, they continue with the actions. They don't stop. Okay, it's to a point where they're just adhering to the demands and just relieve all type of ethics within their mind. And any type of traditions, beliefs, and rules and principles that they had established their whole life, they just let it go. It's pretty amazing, actually. Some people did stop, which I'll talk about, but others just continued on, even though they knew they could kill the person maybe with these electrical volts. All right, so the experiment question: can a group cause a person to physically punish a victim with severity despite the victim's pleas for mercy? Milgram's research answered yes to the question. So peer pressure can cause people to threat others in ways that others would not. So again, through this constant participation, okay, with being involved in this said group, how far can one individual actually go until they maybe cross that ethical threshold? Until they maybe say, you know what, enough's enough. I can't just continue on with this role, okay, with this authoritative approach that's being explained to me. And even though these people knew it was an experiment and they knew that they weren't really, there was a gun to their head, they continued on. It's like, what? How could this even happen? Right, so you got the experiment question down. You need a little bit more time. Okay, sorry. Hopefully I can get through all of it today. You don't have to if you don't want to. I suggest you do, but might see it on the test. Right? It's up to you, man. Okay. All right. So the experiment design. Well, we have an experimenter and a learner are in on the experiment. So like I said, Milgram was designing a study where you have the experimenter, the person who's performing the task. He's the one who's giving out the orders. He's saying, listen, you're going to give a test to this one person. He's strapped up to an electrical chair. And if he answers the question wrong, you got to shock him. And if he continues to answer these questions wrong, you got to amp up the voltage. Can you imagine that? You answer a question wrong and you get shocked? Geez, it's pretty crazy. And if they continue to get these questions wrong, you amp up the voltage to a point where it might be lethal. But anyway, like I said, the experimenter and the person, actually the learner is actually in on the experiment. The learner who's being shocked is actually not being shocked. He's an actor. Okay, so he's pretending like he's receiving the voltage when all reality he's not. The teacher, the person who's giving out the questions and who's supposed to be shocking the individual, he has no clue he's a part of this experiment. He actually thinks he's inflicting harm onto people when the learner, when they're answering the question wrong. Geez, can you imagine that? So every time after a question is maybe explained wrong, he gives an electrical shock. And he's actually persuaded by the experimenter to continue these actions. Again, there's no gun to his head. He can end the experiment if he wants right then and there. But with certain orders from the experimenter, he's like, hey, you're a part of this study. You got to continue this and keep going. Even though he thinks he's inflicting harm, he just continues to go. A lot of these participants do. Around 65% continue these actions. Roy, would you continue to shock someone if they get these questions wrong? Would you?
Probably.
You just conform to it? Okay, all right. What about you, Chris? It's part of the job. Oh my gosh, you guys are terrible. What about you, Leah? You couldn't?
I mean, I couldn't.
Even, well, if someone was in your ear the whole time telling you need to conform to the experiment. You would not. You would stop? I don't know if you would either. All right, so the experiment design generator adds 30 switches in 15-volt increments, labeled 15 volts to 405. So also labeled ranging from slight shock to danger, severe shock, which could cause someone to die. And actually, the teacher, what's that? You need to see the results of the experiment though, right? You're told by this from the experimenter, so you got to continue this. Oh, okay. You're the one who wanted to be involved in the experiment though. So you got to continue on. We need to see the results. We need to see how this is going to end up.
They signed up for this?
Oh, they just said, oh yeah, I'll be involved in this experiment. This doesn't seem too bad. They didn't know kind of the gist of it. They just were told about obedience. That's really it. And a lot of these teachers, the people that are actually administering the electrical shock, they're told that the people that were getting shocked had heart conditions, and they still continued. Can you imagine that?
Those are horrible.
Oh, come on now. Jeez. I think it's more on the experimenter, if anything.
Wait, so they
He's
didn't-
actually tricking that person actually thinking he's shocking them.
they
what?
didn't tell them that they're gonna shock them.
What's that?
They didn't tell them that they're gonna shock them.
Well, the person receiving the shock is an actor. He's actually just pretending to be shocked. The person administering it, no, he thinks he's actually delivering a shock to that
Did they
person when they
tell them
answer a
after?
question. Huh?
Will they tell them after?
Yeah, they told him after. It's like, oh, hey,
That doesn't make it
we
any
got
better.
our results. I know, right? That's why it can psychologically affect people moving, after the experiment. So I kind of described it. Okay, the learner answered questions incorrectly. The teacher would encourage to increase the shock each time. So if they answer question wrong, the teacher administers a shock. The person has no clue what's going on. So even as learners protested, the teacher, under the direction of the experimenter, increased the shocks. So continuously throughout this study, like I said, 65% of people actually reached the end, 450 volts, thinking they're actually harming them, almost to a point where it could kill them.
Wouldn't that have killed them at that point?
Yeah, it would have. Yeah, it would have. But they had no clue. They're just, oh, yeah, just got to keep going. Got to see the results of the experiment. The experimenter is constantly in their ear. You got to keep going. You got to see the results here. Pretty crazy, isn't it?
That's-
But you can see how this like kind of shapes with Nazi Germany, like how they're trying to persuade these people to perform these terrible acts, like in the Holocaust, and for what reason? I was told to. It's like, what? Really? Someone told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it?
yeah, you know.
Jeez, how high is it, right? Is there water underneath there?
It depends on the person.
Oh my gosh. So Zac Efron told you to do it, would you do it? What? Isn't he not charming anymore? Oh my gosh. Okay. So as shocks became stronger, learner grunted, protested, and finally demanded that the experiment stop. Learners should shouted, I can't stand the pain. Teachers asked the experimenters, hey, should I keep going? Should I keep administering the shock? Yeah, you gotta. Experimenters just saying, you gotta continue this on. We gotta see the results of this study. That kept going. And the experiment results. So like I said, 65 of the teachers punished the learners a maximum of 420 volts, which would be lethal, which would kill some of these people, especially with the heart condition that was explained to these teachers, these people that were involved. No teacher stopped before reaching 300 volts. Holy cow. Again, that could be very lethal too, causing excruciating pain. This reminds me of that game at Knoebels in the arcade. It was the Addams Family, Uncle Fester. You like grab onto the posts and it like vibrates really hard and you see how long you can hold on to it. Ever play it?
No.
No? Oh, you guys got to go back
Where
to
did they
Knoebels.
tell the people that they got the person in the chair from?
What's that?
Where did they get the people like that were in the chair? Like where did they tell them?
They're actors.
No, but like where did they tell the people that they? Because nobody would volunteer for that.
I think more or less it was just like, hey, we're trying to find an experiment on obedience. So we want to just see under some conditions, see how far people will actually continue. Yeah, they kind of tricked them. I guess so. I only watched a little bit of Squid Game. I didn't see it all, but I guess that's a good example. Yeah, like how do you persuade someone into that? And that's part of the experiment alone, Leah. And that's part of the experiment alone. It's like, hey, can you like we need you to administer shocks to people if they get the question wrong. They're like, what? Why? And there's like, because it's an experiment we're trying to do. And if they accepted it, that's really the first part of the study. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of money there. I see how you are. All right, so again, results. Milgram set up a control group in which there was no experimenter in the room with the teacher. Shock voltage was much lower in this control group. Thus, the group pressure heavily influenced the level of shock in the experiment. So a control group would be something referenced off of the experimental group. The experimental group, you're thinking you're administering the shock to a point where it could be lethal. The control group, there's like, hey, we're going to leave the experimenter out of the room. We're not going to have someone constantly barking orders to tell the people to continue the shock if they get the question wrong. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. So if they're not in their ear, if they're not present in that room right beside the teacher that is administering the shock, chances are they're just going to, continue experiment, but stop after some time, after they hear the grunts, after they hear the pain. And that makes total sense, right? Again, relating it to Nazi Germany with these political leaders, the propaganda that was involved. If you constantly are stimulated by this, you're going to continue these actions. You're going to continue to do these terrible acts. You guys ever see the movie 300? Yeah, I think in the beginning he has his son kill a wolf, right? In the very beginning, and he's just like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't want to kill the wolf, but the dad's just like, get over there and do it. We need to show that you're a killer, that you can go on the battlefield and kill something, right? And this is training the child to just do this without hesitation. Kind of similar to this, right? Very similar. All right, is there any questions on that, guys? So you see how the Milgram study, how you can conform to certain actions, to certain authorities, depending on the situation. And in group setting like this, where you have an experiment or someone telling you these actions and saying, hey, this is for the good of the experiment. They don't have a gun to their head like Nazi Germany did, but at the same time, this is for the good of the experiment. This could really help us out. This could benefit our results. If you just give up now, this is really just going to, end our findings. And many people just went through with it. Whew. Wow. Crazy, right? Okay, there you go. So again, make sure you guys have that reading done, the questions done. We'll discuss that tomorrow. The Milgram Study.